A huge snow cruiser of American researchers is abandoned somewhere in ice of Antarctica. For Americans, car is the main vehicle. This is a guarantee of mobility and freedom in a huge country. So, what would be the other idea to come up to American scientists who are planning an expedition to Antarctica in the 1930s, if not preparing a special vehicle to cross the huge snowy continent? A large car. In fairness, it was, as usual, the idea of the enthusiasts, Thomas Poulter, who founded the project and took on its implementation. Mr. Poulter was not a man from the street, and he had some experience of Antarctic expeditions. Based on his own sad experience when Thomas and a team of scientists got stuck at a faraway base due to weather conditions and almost died there, the researcher decided to rely on mobility to stay alive in Antarctica. In the mid-1930s, Poulter began to push his idea into the relevant departments, and in 1937, the Research Foundation of the Institute of Technology in Chicago agreed to sponsor the Snow Cruiser project. By 1939, when Admiral William Byrd was planning a scientific expedition to Antarctica, Thomas Poulter received an additional $150,000, huge money at the time, to build the Snow Cruiser. Construction of the Snow Cruiser started in Chicago in August 1939 and took only 11 weeks. The car, what else can you call it, had a wheelbase of more than 6 meters and a total length of more than 17 meters. The power plant used two 11-liter Cummins diesel engine with a total capacity of 300 horsepower, which rotated 2 generations, feeding 4 electric motors in each wheel with a diameter of 3 meters. The Snow Cruiser was supposed to reach speed of up to 50 km per hour. All wheels were steerable, which allowed the huge monster to maneuver somehow. The ground clearance was adjusted, which in theory should have allowed the Snow Cruiser to push itself through the cracks in the ice. You can see it in the diagram below. The bottom was designed flat, a kind of penguin with a weight of 34 tons. Inside the Snow Cruiser was a control room, workshop, kitchen, storage room, and living quarters capable of accommodating a crew of 5. The rest of the space inside the car was occupied by 2 giant spare wheels and a fuel supply. The Snow Cruiser was carrying not only 2,300 liters of diesel for itself, but also 4,500 liters for the aircraft based on the roof. The Snow Cruiser was built in Chicago, but sent by the sea to Antarctica from Boston. Quite big journey from Chicago to Boston was decided to take by the Snow Cruiser under its own power. They added some extreme. On the way there were some troubles. For example, the Snow Cruiser fell off the bridge and got stuck in the riverbed for 3 days. Not the best start. In Boston, the car was loaded onto the Polar Star and sent to Antarctica. On January 12, 1940, the Snow Cruiser made it to the snowy land, for the conquest of which it was created. Problems started immediately. The wooden ramp built to lower the car from the ship almost collapsed under the weight of the monster. The most surprising thing is that the all-terrain vehicle for snowy expanses has never been tested in the snow. Therefore, the helplessness of the snow giant was a surprising for the crew. It was sinking into the snow. The tires, even with the chains, could not cope, and the declared maximum speed turned out to be way too ambitious. The task of getting to the South Pole had to be stopped. The snow cruiser was barely able to overcome the Ross Shelf, where it got stuck. The plane was also not ready for difficult conditions. The engine failed. In general, the snow cruiser lost mobility and became a stationary base for scientists. But the expedition was originally declared for 5,000 miles, but the snow cruiser was able to make less than 100. In the end, the parked snow cruiser had to be completely abandoned. The Second World War was getting stronger in Europe, and there was no time for expeditions. Several wooden poles were dug in next to the snow cruiser in order to later find it under the snow. In 1946, the snow cruiser were discovered by a US Navy expedition, and it was last seen in 1958. The ice in Antarctica is constantly shifting, and in addition, many years ago, a huge chunk of the Ross Ice Shelf broke off near the site of the snow cruiser's eternal anchorage. So it is now unknown whether the fragments of the ambitious project are at the bottom of the sea or under a layer of snow. As we say, it was all smooth on paper. In the next years, cars did appear in Antarctica. Thomas Poulter's idea was not completely unviable. In 1963, Volkswagen sent a Beetle to Antarctica, mainly for advertising purposes.